I want you to imagine, just for a moment, that your mind is like a vast, intricate web, woven with threads of your beliefs, emotions, fears, and desires. Some threads are luminous, reflecting moments of clarity and love. Others are dark and tangled, representing doubts, regrets, and the burdens you carry unknowingly. Together, these threads form the spiritual fabric of your being, shaping how you perceive yourself and the world. But what happens when the web becomes so tangled that the light within struggles to shine through? This is where our journey begins. Together, we will explore not just how to untangle these threads, but how to do so gently, without judgment, force, or fear. Because awakening is not a battle, it is a soft unraveling and allowing. As we start, I want to ask you something profound. What if the constraints you feel are not external at all, but entirely created by your own mind? Let that question settle in you as we go deeper. The gentle power of awareness. I've often said that awareness is like sunlight. It illuminates the shadows, but it does so without burning or pushing. The first step to untangling the threads of your spiritual constraints is simply to become aware of them. Notice the patterns of thought that arise when you feel stuck or overwhelmed. Notice how certain memories or beliefs grip you tightly, like knots in the web. But don't rush to fix them. Just observe. When we rush to fix ourselves, we often tighten the very knots we are trying to untangle. But when we observe without judgment, those knots begin to loosen on their own. Why? Because awareness itself is transformative. It's like holding a tangled string in your hands and gently examining it. Soon you begin to see the natural way it wants to unfold. Ask yourself now, can I sit with my constraints, even the painful ones, without rushing to change them? The art of asking better questions. Sometimes spiritual constraints arise not from the answers we lack, but from the questions we avoid. We rarely ask ourselves the questions that scare us the most. What am I really afraid of? What if the life I've built is not the one my soul desires? Who would I be without my pain? These are the questions that untangle threads at their very root. I want you to take a moment to reflect on a question that resonates with you deeply. Write it down or hold it in your heart. Don't seek an answer right away. Let the question work within you like a seed planted in fertile soil. Awakening is not about finding all the answers, it's about learning to live inside the questions. The illusion of constraints. As we explore further, we must recognize that many of the threads we feel bound by are illusions. These illusions are powerful, yes, but they are not real. For instance, think about the belief, I am not enough. This belief might feel like a thick, unbreakable thread in your spiritual web, but look closely. What is it really made of? Perhaps it's the voice of a critical parent, the memory of a failure, or the fear of rejection. But none of these things define who you truly are. They are echoes, shadows. To see through the illusion of a constraint, ask yourself, who would I be if this belief didn't exist? Don't try to force the belief away. Instead, imagine the spaciousness that would open up without it. This is how we gently unravel what binds us, by questioning its reality and allowing the truth to emerge. Practical wisdom for untangling threads. Let's bring this down to a practical level. Awakening is not something that happens in a temple or a retreat alone. It happens in the ordinary moments of your life. So how can you gently untangle the threads of your constraints in daily life? Breathe into the tight spaces. When you feel constrained, notice where that tension lives in your body. Is it in your chest, your stomach, your throat? Place your hand gently on that spot and breathe into it. Imagine your breath as a soft wind, untangling the knots inside. Practice letting go of control. One of the biggest spiritual constraints is our need to control everything. Our thoughts, our emotions, our circumstances. But control is an illusion. Instead of trying to control the web of your mind, practice surrendering to its natural flow. Trust that the threads will untangle themselves in time. create rituals of release. Set aside a moment each day to consciously release what no longer serves you. This could be as simple as writing down your worries on a piece of paper and burning it, or whispering your burdens to the wind. Rituals have a way of bypassing the mind and reaching the heart. A deep question to ponder. As we close this part, I want to leave you with a question that can shift your perspective profoundly. What if awakening is not about becoming something new, but about remembering who you already are? The dance between fear and freedom, breaking free without breaking apart. Fear is a powerful thread in the web of spiritual constraints. It clings, it binds, and it whispers, what if you fall? What if you fail? What if you break apart? But here's the paradox. Fear is not your enemy. It is a guide, a mirror, and often the very doorway to your freedom. To untangle the threads of spiritual constraints, we must learn to dance with fear, not to fight it, suppress it, or ignore it, but to move with it gracefully. I want to ask you now, what are you most afraid of losing if you awaken fully? Let this question rest in you as we explore the delicate balance between fear and freedom. Understanding fear's role. Fear arises when we stand on the edge of the unknown. It tells us, stay where you are. The web may be tangled, but at least it's familiar. This is why so many of us remain trapped. Not because we are incapable of freedom, but because we are afraid of what freedom might cost. But what if we reframed fear? Instead of seeing it as a block, we could see it as a threshold. Fear is not there to stop you. It's there to show you where you are ready to grow. When you feel fear, ask yourself, what is this fear trying to protect? What truth is it hiding from me? Often the things we fear the most, failure, rejection, vulnerability, are the very things that lead to the deepest freedom when faced with courage and compassion. The gentle art of letting go. One of the hardest threads to untangle is attachment. We cling to identities, relationships, and beliefs, even when they cause us suffering, because they give us a sense of stability. But awakening is not about holding on, it is about letting go. And letting go is not a single act, it is a practice, a rhythm. Start with something small. Think of a belief you've carried for years, perhaps the belief that you are unworthy or unlovable. Notice how this belief has shaped your life, your choices, your relationships. Then ask yourself, what would my life look like without this belief? Not better, not worse, just different. Now imagine placing that belief in a stream and watching it float away. You don't have to force it to go, just let the current take it, gently. This is the practice of letting go, not with resistance but with trust. Fear and freedom are partners, not opposites. Here's a truth that might surprise you. Fear and freedom are not enemies. They are partners in the dance of awakening. Freedom is not the absence of fear. It is the courage to move forward even when fear is present. When you can hold your fear with tenderness, when you can say to it, I see you and I will not run from you, then you are free. Let's try an exercise together. Close your eyes and think of something you deeply fear. Perhaps a change you've been avoiding or a truth you've been unwilling to face. Now, instead of pushing the fear away, invite it closer. Imagine holding it in your hands like a small, frightened bird. What does it need from you? What is it trying to tell you? This is how we break free without breaking apart, by embracing the parts of ourselves we've been taught to reject. Practical steps to dance with fear. Name your fear. When fear arises, give it a name. Say, this is my fear of failure, or this is my fear of being alone. Naming it helps you see it as a part of you, not the whole of you. Sit with your fear. Create a safe space to sit with your fear, even for just a few minutes. Breathe deeply and let it speak to you. What does it want you to know? What wisdom does it hold? Take small steps toward freedom. You don't have to face your greatest fear all at once. Start with something small, something that feels just a little uncomfortable but manageable. Each small step builds your courage. The illusion of control. Many of our fears stem from the illusion of control. We believe that if we hold on tightly enough, if we plan every detail, protect ourselves from every risk, avoid every failure, we can control our lives. But control is a thread that binds us more tightly than almost any other. To untangle this thread, ask yourself, what am I trying to control and why? What would happen if I let go? When we surrender control, we don't lose ourselves. We find the flow of life, the natural rhythm that carries us where we need to go, even when we don't know the destination. Surrender is not giving up, it is giving in to the truth of what is. A new relationship with freedom. Freedom is not something you achieve, it is something you remember. It is the state of being you were born into before the threads of fear, control, and attachment began to bind you. To untangle these threads is to return to that state, not as a child but as an awakened soul. I want to ask you now, if you were truly free, what would you do differently in your life? How would you speak, act, and love? As we reach the final stretch of this journey, let's pause and reflect on something profound. Awakening is not a destination. It's not a place you arrive at, not a title you earn, nor an achievement you display. Awakening is an infinite horizon, an ever-unfolding path that continually invites you to live beyond the constraints you thought defined you. It asks you to release, to trust, and to embrace the unknown, not just once but again and again. So I ask you, what does it mean to live with no final answers, only deeper questions? Imagine your life as a flowing river. Along its banks you've built dams of fear, doubt, and expectation. These dams slow the current, creating pools of stagnation where your energy grows heavy and still. But the river's nature is to flow freely. When we untangle the threads of our spiritual constraints, we are not adding anything new to the river. We are simply removing the dams. Living beyond constraints is not about changing who you are. It's about becoming who you've always been. It's about returning to flow, to movement, to aliveness. But how do we embody this truth in the messiness of everyday life? Spaciousness is the antidote to constraint. When we feel constrained, it's often because we're holding on too tightly to our thoughts, our emotions, or our circumstances. But what if we could hold everything lightly, with open hands? Here's a practice for spaciousness. Sit quietly and close your eyes. Imagine your mind as a vast open sky. Let your thoughts, fears, and constraints arise like clouds drifting across the sky. Watch them without trying to change or stop them. Notice how they come and go, how none of them stay forever. Now ask yourself, who is watching these clouds? Who is the sky? You'll begin to sense that you are not your thoughts, not your fears, not even your constraints. You are the spacious awareness within which they arise, and in that spaciousness there is freedom. Awakening is not a solitary experience, it is a return to connection. Connection with yourself, with others, and with the greater whole. When we live beyond constraints, we realize that the boundaries we've drawn between me and you, between self and other, are illusions. The threads that bind us are also the threads that connect us. Take a moment now to think of someone in your life who has challenged you, someone whose presence has felt like a constraint. Instead of seeing them as a block to your freedom, ask, what is this person here to teach me? What thread are they helping me untangle, even if it feels uncomfortable? Often, our greatest teachers are the ones who push us to see beyond our own limitations. Awakening is not about escaping relationships or responsibilities, it's about transforming them into pathways for growth and connection. The courage to embrace the unknown. Living beyond constraints means living in the unknown. This can feel terrifying at first because we crave certainty and control. But the unknown is where life happens. It's where creativity, love, and transformation are born. Think about it. Every meaningful experience in your life began in the unknown. Falling in love, starting a new journey, discovering a hidden passion. None of these came from a place of certainty. They came from stepping into the mystery, so I ask you, what would it look like to live your life as an adventure, trusting the unknown instead of fearing it? Practical steps to embrace awakening. Create rituals of renewal. Just as you untangle threads gently, create rituals that remind you to return to flow. It could be as simple as starting each day with gratitude or ending it with a moment of reflection. Surround yourself with mirrors, seek out people, books, and experiences that reflect your deepest truths back to you. Surround yourself with those who challenge you to grow, not in harshness but with love. Anchor yourself in the present. The infinite horizon of awakening can feel overwhelming if you're always looking ahead. Anchor yourself in the present moment, the only place where life unfolds. Practice mindfulness in small ways. Notice the taste of your food, the sound of the wind, the sensation of your breath. Living with radical trust. At the heart of awakening is trust. Trust in yourself, trust in life, and trust in the unfolding mystery. This trust doesn't mean that life will always be easy or that you'll never face challenges. It means that even in the hardest moments you can find a thread of grace, a deeper current carrying you forward. Here's a final question for you to hold as we close this journey. What would it feel like to trust life completely, even when it doesn't go as planned? Let this question guide you as you step into the infinite horizon of your awakening. You don't need to untangle every thread all at once, you only need to begin. And as you do, remember, the light you seek is already within you. It has been there all along, waiting patiently for you to let it shine. Thank you for walking this path with me.